fear. It's interesting, like a lucero. Un lucero is like a torchlight, guiding light. It's like the person, it's like the psychopomp navigating the little boat that you're on. And how you learn how to communicate with that fear kind of determines the direction that the ship starts to take. And it is always pointing towards the richest places, the most interesting things, I think, to sing about, to write about, whatever, to make any art about. Fear generally is interesting, the nature of it, texture of it, and how there's general, universal, archetypal type of fears, and then there's these very, very subjective fears. What's difficult and frightening to me might be so easy. So easy for you. And vice versa. Beyond that, we get into the root of it. We get into, really an interesting, space. And also that's where healing is born. You kind of have to start off at the most broken place in order for there to be any real desire for healing. Because healing is such a drag. It's not fun. It's not going to the spa. It's like the worst. It's walking through fire.
It's getting too late to tell it.
I guess some kind of feeling of starting over all the time. Being reborn each morning kind of feeling. What's interesting at this moment, and how can I make today something mysterious as opposed to something I have to deal with, something I have to slog through. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. That's an exciting space to be. So, back to the first question, another word for fear, or something kind of empowering, is to transmute fear into mystery. So instead of what am I afraid of, you can start to use this language personally. Just what do I find mysterious? It makes it a little bit less of a heavy trip that you don't want to look at it. Yeah.
Where the signal is strong and the tech flows like wine.
There's a famous letter that Baudelaire wrote, and they say that I'm happy. Never. It's like one of the funniest things. Used to always crack me up. I read that in high school. And I'm not sure what that is. What is this happiness stuff? Peace is maybe peace. Maybe I feel peaceful. I don't feel aggression. And I don't feel miserable. But, happy, I don't know, at moments. Maybe within a second, and then another second. It's not really this, it's like, it doesn't feel realistic to what it's like to be human at all. Just be this one thing. Fundamentally, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a kind of a cheesy thing to say, but it definitely is. And it takes, those moments when you're totally heartbroken open with music, it's very obvious. So it's not even worth saying. It's so clearly sacred, so obviously sacred. That's why it seems so cheesy to say it. We all know it fundamentally that it is. Even the worst, whatever you think of as the worst music, there's some sacredness to it, some sacred quality to it. And someone it'll hit somebody in some sacred way. Whatever is total garbage to your ears, for someone else is totally sacred, which I find so fascinating, right? Music will hit you at different moments in your life. You might hear a song that just means nothing to you. And then, whatever, you get a divorce, you hear that song again. Oh my God, it's unbearably beautiful. Heartbreaking, you're weeping on the subway. Isn't that amazing? I think that's probably why I keep writing songs. I don't have that feeling. Like, this one is really great. And it's tough, because I kind of end up, I'm cruel to myself. I'll never really be satisfied with it. And I go towards the darker end of that kind of self-castigating attitude. What the fuck, you fucked up, you didn't do that right. And I overdo that. I think there could be just the other end of that spectrum is, it'll never be perfect. Art is a practice. You just continue to deepen that practice. And what ends up happening is that things just expand and grow. There's more things to be interested in, more things to be curious about. You just kind of tend to the garden. You cultivate something. You don't just figure it out. Figure out a flower. You tell a gardener to figure out a flower. Okay, you're done. I grew one flower, I'm done. No, it's this ongoing process, right? So That's, I think, how it's supposed to kind of work. I end up going on the shadow side of that, which is, you didn't write a good song ever. You fucked up. You know, that's not really helpful. I'm just telling you right now. I don't know. My therapist came to my show in Spain. The residue of that is turning you into them right now. And it wasn't really an intentional, let's do something totally different. But I know it is, and a lot of that is because I'm in a different place. Working with Kate, so collaborative. I secretly wanted to make like a very sunny jam California style record, and then even more secretly knew that that would be a terrible idea. And Kate saw that from the beginning. And so we made this record based on images that we wanted to conjure up, and then chose the instruments based on what that image would be like. And we wanted it to feel, we would talk about this before starting a session. Let's make this feel like a desolate landscape, something like liminal and some twilight kind of terrain where there's just shadows and ghosts in the distance. Okay, how do we do that? Well, let's try ukulele. That doesn't work. Synthesizer, this particular synth, this particular setting. We spent a long time trying to conjure up that feeling. Something like if you were watching Blade Runner and the camera stops following Harrison Ford and just follows an extra, and then they go to Whole Foods, and then they go to their therapy session. So something like that felt like that, like turning Blade Runner into the most boring documentary of all time, of life in a little town, some futuristic dystopia. People are still trying to do their thing, you know, trying to love and be loved. It's different for me because for me what seems different in this record is that before I wrote it, I burnt my archives. You know, I don't know how to cook, which is wonderful. I'm wonderfully bad at cooking. It's like a real talent. But I don't have, the pantry there's no food in the pantry, it's just notebooks. For over 20 years of notebooks that made it, informed all the records, all the lyrics for all the records. And that seemed very precious to me and important. My archives, someday, they'll be in the Smithsonian. You know, just delusional stuff. But it's like so important, my archives. And at one point, I need to start over. What is this? This is just nothing. This is some story that doesn't matter that much to me. You know, this is such a big part of my identity. And that seemed, I don't know, it seemed really sad and heavy. And so over about a month it took, because it takes a long time to burn paper in a safe way in LA, just burnt in a very ritualistic manner every notebook, 25 years of work. So it was a lot, And at one point I thought, oh, what am I doing? This stuff is so important. What am I doing? My lyric. And the little piece, this is a true story, a little piece of paper flew up and I caught it. And I looked at it and said, fruit is cool. I think definitely does change this record for me personally, as opposed to this. But musically or instrumental-wise, it feels kind of like part of a story, of a narrative. I pray, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I really have no opinions. I've given up on opinions. I'm just like, that everything I feel is going to change. And that's a wonderful, beautiful space to be in. It kind of returns back to this dancing with mystery, and art is this ever expansive thing that I'll never just be able to understand or get to. And you just want to continue to explore, you know? Yeah, I think curiosity is the opposite of rigidity and petrification. You know, staying curious is kind of the most important thing. It's sometimes, some people have that naturally, and some people you have to kind of force yourself to be curious about something, and then that curiosity naturally takes over. That's a good question. I like that question. I'll come up with an answer someday, but no one's ever asked me that before, so I don't know. I have no idea. You know, how are you? I hate that question. I like answering that question with, you tell me. I mean, you did ask me if we could just do it on the bed, and I said I'd just fall asleep. That would have been nice. That was a nice one. You know, that's a nice question. Mind if we do the interview on the bed, and you fall asleep, and I'll just talk the whole time? That was a nice question. Thank you for that.